Hello guys, it's me, Greed here. Today I want to talk about player interaction and how it's pretty greatly diminished over the course of basically the entire history of Overwatch. Basically what I think is, as Overwatch has gone on, it has, the design and the balance has gone more in favor of the avoidance of player interaction, more so than the incentive to interact with other players. And this is fairly, maybe not provable, but very visible. If you go back and look at old Overwatch 1 content, you'll see pretty quickly that a lot of the gameplay are players that are constantly fighting for player interaction. Watch old Genji videos. They're dashing every single time that shit's not on cooldown. You know, they're fighting constantly. They're always looking for a duel. They're always fighting on an angle. They're always actually doing something. Same with the Tracer, blinking around everywhere, fighting for an angle, getting off the angle, going backline, fighting backline, peeling back, getting someone off their supports, going back in, fighting again. It's soldier players, flanking, jumping on the off angle, shooting backline, taking a duel, fighting the duel, playing the map control game a little bit on the corner, then fighting more people, right? There was a constant flow of people fiending for player interaction. They needed it because the game had so much carry potential back then that you were so incentivized to go out and actually do it, because if you were better than the enemy team, then you could just solo basically every 1v1 and guarantee that you win the game. And that was what made Overwatch really beautiful to me, is that you could just kind of go out and win the game for your whole team if you were good enough, right? Like, if I'm on Genji, the big part of it is, like, look back at Overwatch 1, right? A 4700 player in Overwatch 1 has a 75% win rate, 80% win rate, because they're getting into their game, they're picking their hero, and they're 1v3ing every fight, and they're just slaughtering everyone because they're better than them. And there's so much carry potential that you're allowed to do that. Look at, like, champ players today, 55%. 60% at the really fucking highest if they're playing a lot of games. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying, like, oh, they've got 15 games this season, they got a 90% win rate. I'm talking, like, Tracer player, 4,700, he's got 400 games played this season, 80% win rate. Like, he's just fucking dogging on everyone, right? Because that's how it was back then. But today, it's not really like that. And I don't like that. And I think the like I said, the design and the fundamentals of the game has swayed more towards incentivizing players to avoid player interaction more so than, you know, actually go out and look for player interaction, right? Things like sustain and denial and so on makes it so in a lot of cases you're actually better off not looking for the player interaction than you are actually looking for it. And I would even dare to say that the game is less about looking to try and win interactions with players, and it's more about avoiding it as much as possible, right? Like, back in the day, your skill was based on your ability to interact with a player and outplay them and play better than them and so on. I think today it's more so about one's ability to efficiently avoid player interaction as much as possible and just kind of play your basic gameplay loop, right? Because look at it this way. If you're on a Genji and you want to go and duel someone, well, then you have to understand the amount of mobility creep in the game is going to make the duel extremely difficult. They're likely going to get peeled on very, very quickly. The tanks are significantly stronger. They do way too much damage now. Their health bars are fatter. Their utility is more useful. The support's absolutely game-breaking. They've got more healing. They've got more damage, more mobility, more mitigation, more buff potential, more denial, more sustain, more everything. The majority of the DPS, they've got more poke, more denial, more mitigation, more survivability, less dueling potential, and so on. So it becomes fairly apparent that you're almost always better off avoiding player interaction more so than you are actually seeking it out, because if you can avoid all of the players that are fiending to try and actually take a duel with you, it means that your basic gameplay loop over time, because it's naturally safer, will likely output a more consistent value than the players incurring lots of risk, right? And that might seem a little bit wrong, because you can obviously see, like, people smurfing in a lobby and they're all fighting everyone, obviously, because they're way better than them, right? But let's say you're like a diamond player and you're in a high plat lobby, you're almost better off just just kind of sticking to your basic gameplay loop. Let's say you're like an Ashe player. There is no reason for you to do what a top 500 Ashe player would do and go out and seek like a really aggressive angle and try, maybe try to go for picking the back lane, maybe look for an actual duel on someone and so on. You've got no reason to do that when your basic gameplay loop consists of essentially free survivability options, in the sense you've got Coach Gun and Dynamite, and you've got basically your whole team ready to peel for you immediately because your general angle is going to be closer to your supports, so it's easier for them to get on you, and it's going to cost them less resources to actually go and help you, right? And they're not going to have to use as much mobility cooldowns as well. So you're better off just sticking to that basic gameplay loop because of that consistent natural output, more so than you are worth putting in the risk. Because if I put on the risk on any character, let's just say Ashe for example, if I put in that risk and I go on that aggressive off angle, chances are if I actually try to take a duel with someone or I try to poke someone out of an angle, they're going to get Suzu'd, they're going to get life grip, they're going to get emote, they're going to get a bunch of heal on them, they're going to, the tank with the quadrillion HP is just going to get on top of me and kill me immediately. And so there's so many things. Or maybe the character that I'm fighting uses all of their mobility cooldowns or so on, and that might seem valuable. Obviously you're forcing cooldowns, but it means that all that time you spent getting on that aggressive off angle isn't likely to produce the amount of value worth as it was to get rid of those mobility cooldowns, because then you also have to use yours to get out, otherwise they're going to collapse on you and you're going to die. So what is the point of you going into that backline, incurring all of that risk, trying to take those duels and those fights and so on, if it means that you're losing out on that basic gameplay loop because you can't interact with that gameplay loop on your more aggressive angle, because obviously you're going to be incurring more risk, therefore you can't just do the general poke playstyle, you have to take advantage of your more aggressive angle, which means you're not going to be playing that basic gameplay loop anymore, right? So it just means that when you do go for those angles, you don't have that basic gameplay loop anymore to fall back on. So why would you do that and incur all that risk when you can stand safely at the back of the map, shoot the squishies that you can see, maybe try and get a pick? You do so much damage anyway, it doesn't really matter. You're not forced to go on these angles to do anything. And chances are, if you ever get in any danger, you're right next to your supports and they save your life anyway. Right? There's no reason to actually go out and do any of the fun shit anymore, because you're just going to get spammed with denial if you try and do it, and you're not going to incur any risk doing your basic gameplay loop because your team is going to spam the denial on you anyway. And there's really no character in the game that requires more player interaction today than they did back then. I mean, just go and look at it. It's night and day. Watch old Overwatch 1 VODs of people playing ranked, and you'll see Rhine players, they just don't give a fuck. They're just swinging their fucking hammer at everything. They're fighting constantly. They always want to do shit. And that's the same with every other character in the game. Even Mercy had significantly more player interaction when she's bumping around, flying all over the place, right? She's actually interacting with the environment a lot more than she's just pocketing the hit scans. And again, like I said, it applies to absolutely every character in the game without fail. And then once you, go back and watch those videos, you're like, okay, that's what that's like. Go and watch modern day Overwatch, and it's just a bunch of hit scan babies standing at the back of the map, avoiding all potential player interaction outside of their basic gameplay loop, where they're just spamming down main and shooting. Maybe they'll take a slight off angle and just spam there a bit. Oh, I'm in the ever so slightest bit of danger. Press your get off me button and reset and do it again, right? Boring. Look at old Genji. Dash in, duel, take that fight, hit a big deflect. You're dueling this guy, you're wall claiming up there, you're taking that high ground, you're fighting someone off of it, right? You're doing shit all the time. What is Genji doing today? Well, I can't duel, because if I go and try and duel anything, I have to dash on the target, and because every character in the game's got some kind of get off me tool or survivability tool or mitigation tool or whatever, it means the chances are if you do try and take the first engagement with the dash, it's just going to get denied immediately anyway, so it's just fucking pointless. You're just going to kill yourself if you do that. So you can't dash on a target, well, you're going to have to path onto a target. Okay, well, how long does it take to path onto a target, right? That requires so much setup to get into. Okay, I've done all this setup, I've lost a teammate in the process of getting set up for this. What was the point of this? Why would I ever bother doing any of this shit when realistically it's not going to work anyway, because as soon as you access that deal with Genji, unless you immediately delete your target, they're just going to get denied anyway. Why would you do that when you can just go, okay, I'm going to basically stand down main, I'm going to contest any angle that a hit scan might want, I'm just going to stand here AFK, play map control Genji and poke shurikens all day until I get blade, and then we do Juno blade or fucking Kitsune blade or whatever other kind of blade we do, and the majority of the time the blade's purely just to force the mitigation cooldowns out so your tanks can press W and actually kill something, because chances are if your tanks press W, they're just going to spam with denial, and if you just pop blade first, get rid of all the denial, then your tanks can just walk forward because they're still super tanks anyway. The game is just so fucking boring in this current state, because You're actually, it's the most bizarre concept in the world. You're better off not interacting with the general design of the game than you are actually interacting with the design of the game, if you know what I mean. Because old Overwatch was designed to be player on player, outplay as much as possible. It's all skill based. If you're good enough, 1v6. And now it's just, well, I can't do anything. You could put the greatest player on earth on DPS. It doesn't matter. They can't shoot through a Suzu. They can't shoot through an ammo. They can't shoot through a life grip. They can't shoot through all the mobility. They can't shoot through all the... Right, there's so much shit they just can't deal with because that's the game we play. And that's what makes me mad about current day Overwatch. I hate that they've done this. Let me fight people on my heroes, right? Let me go out of my way to go actually try and win the game by myself, but I can't, because if I ever do try to actually do anything that's, self-focused, like go and try and take a duel or whatever, I'm going to get spammed with dog shit, denial, and they're just going to spam AoE heal, and they're going to hit 55 mobility cooldowns, and it's just fucking boring. There is no reason to go out and do anything. It incurs more risk than it's worth. You're better off just interacting with your basic gameplay loop and shooting people down main all day and on basic angles as a hit scan. And that's tilting. I love you all. I hope you have a very good day. Tell me if you disagree, and I hope you eat delicious lasagna. I love you all. Have a good day. Goodbye. 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 Goodbye.